So today, me and one of my friends, Jay, got talking about government, and we got talking about how democracy is the best of the worst governments, and it raises a good question. It makes you ponder what governments are and how do they work, and various questions that really intrigue the mind. I ended up getting on Wikipedia, and oh man, I spent like 2 hours reading about all the different forms of government, right? And trying to understand all the different types. And trust me, there's a lot more than you'd ever believe. A crazy amount of different forms of government. Sorry. And it makes you wonder, what is the perfect form of government? It was once said that if all men were angels, no government would be necessary. Well, men are angels, and heaven is not on earth, so that doesn't really work out too well for us. People have their sinister beliefs, and they all have ways that they counteract with each other, and they don't usually work out. But how do you have a government that works so perfectly that nothing can happen? No problems, no issues? Well, that would be impossible, right? Probably. How do we correct what's uncorrectable? How do we fix an issue that's unfixable? That's an intriguing question we must ask ourselves. You look at all these different forms and you analyze all the data, and you compare and contrast all the different forms of government, and you start finding good parts and bad parts of each form, and they're quite intriguing. Presidential democracy, in theory, is a great idea. In theory, in practice, you get two isolated individuals that really represent the same thing. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, they might have different social issues or different political issues, but they're not really that different. But with a multi-party different government, you have a chance where someone with a 30% view might win the entire electoral vote. And is that right? That a minority viewing gets, because they had 30% and someone else had 20 and then 10%, that they should run their government, their ideals should run the government? That's not right either. How do you perfect a government with imperfect people to represent it? And how do you figure it out? There's different forms of government, some very intriguing. There was one I read on Wikipedia where it's a government by just statistical fact. It's a body, they're not given any, personality to it. They're just said, hey, here are the statistics, make a decision. But wait, that can't work because economic theorists have already figured out how to solve our deficit, but why can't they fix it? There's a big problem to that. You might be able to say, well, these funds, A, B, C, or D, E, F, need to be fixed. But when you look into those funds, you realize that's, your grandmother's health care or the money that pays a street. Personalized issues that you can't just get rid of. Quite questionably, you can't. So theorem doesn't equal practice. So how do you make a government that represents theorem but equivalates to practice in a good belief? That's a question that's hard to equal. Hard to answer, I mean. So I started looking through. There's another form of government where it is of all specialized individuals. Those who are doctors would, work on medical issues. Those who are engineers will work on engineering issues. Those who are computer specialists would work on computer issues. And you would assign them to their selected bodies. And there would be no economic people, there'd be no business people, there'd be no politicians. Sounds good, doesn't it? But wait, it doesn't work. You need economic people. You need business theorem because that's how the world operates. But you also need those engineers. You need those doctors' input. Obviously, the political system we have right now is not working. We see across the globe democracy, which isn't really even the form we're supposed to have. If you would ask any person on the street, what do we have, a republic or a democracy? They would say democracy. But do you not know the United States was formed a republic? They sound the same, but they mean so much different. Democracy is ruled by the people. Republic is ruled by law. Very different. If 30 people in a room of 31 decide they don't like someone, democracy says they can do whatever they want to that person. A republic says, no, there's laws that our government has, laws of how we operate, and we will not let that one person be singled out. We are all one under this government. People really don't care about that, do they? They want simplified answers. They want to not look in to issues because they feel like the complexity of that issue cannot grab them by the soul and let them conceive through their ideals to fix that system. So I propose we fix the system. How would you do that, you might ask? There is no single form of government that can fix that single issue. If there was, it'd be easy to do, and nobody would ever question this theorem of government that would be so easy to comprehend and conceive the governmental powers that those who watch it and understand it would easily give in, but it doesn't work. Democracy doesn't work, republics don't work, tyranny doesn't work, communism, Syrianism, so many systems do not work at their comprehension of core basics. Because in practice they don't equal in theorem. So how do you fix that issue without fixing the whole world and fixing how we think? You can't. So fix the system on a large level, but allow the lower levels to continue at the level they operate without too many problems. If you look on local issues, yeah, there's issues, but not as like we have on the national or state. The problem we face today is that people are so divided. We have a far left and a far right, and no one wants to be in the middle. No one can get elected if you're the center. You have to be the left or the far right, and it doesn't work that way. We are a government of the people, representative of the people, and we all have issues that comprehend us and make us who we are. We have to look into the other room and be compelled to understand and comprehend what's wrong with others. Not wrong in a moral issue, but wrong of how society treats them, and to fix that issue. Don't just stand by and let problems become crazy academics of theorems that don't exist. Allow governments to take over and not care about your rights or how you're treated as a citizen. Do not let that become of what we think it should. Sit back. Ask yourself, how can we fix this government? So I did. I read through the theorems of government. I read through all the various forms, comprehended how they enact, and I found there is no single form like I previously stated, but one we might be able to do. Take various forms, comprehend them together, create a system of government that is so unique, so diverse, but so strikingly new that it must work. Not because we say it must, but because it in theorem works, but in practice also as well. Because it cares about the people, but also realizes that people don't care about the government. It's a sad, sad day when you realize that people are 100% engaged in government, but why should they be? People at their very basic core care about themselves and their family and their personal livelihood. Why would a person in Oklahoma on a farming town care about the economic theorem and how banking practices are done in Asia? They wouldn't. So why do we elect governmental figures that say they can fix these issues when they really don't? They have people that monetarily give them funds, allow them to advance through society, and it doesn't fix the core issue. So I proposed a system of combined governmental forms. A republic that cares about the people, that cares about the minorities, but also has a view and a charistic approach to the whole, that doesn't single out but doesn't allow for a majority to take rule. A group of people that see the world because they grew up in the world. Don't take the elites, don't take the poor, take the middle. Take someone that experiences problems and take those problems and put them into an individual. These individuals are people that have faced scenarios that make them leaders, make them educators, that make them engineers, doctors, that make them who they are. So we look at this issue and I ask yourselves, look at the world and let's fix it. So first, let's get a group of people, less than 15, probably 12, 13 including the presidential figure. This person is neither elected, but he is selected. I'll get into that later. You have a group, a council of sorts, of the chief engineer who has his own council of engineers. A doctor or a medical professional who has his own council of doctors and medical professionals. An economic theorist, someone who has worked in the real life economic theorem, who has practiced it, has worked in banking or whatever it must be, and has his own council. And this council would create of 12 people, of 12 different needs, that would perfect the world. This council would be not elected, but selected. Very scrutinizedly selected. Pick the best of the world, but the most experienced, the most enriched in human emotion and understanding of the world so that they can impact the world and create a better life. This is just the beginning, but I hope I compelled you to see how we fix the world.